Hello everyone, this is Dr. Catalana. The purpose of this presentation is to provide a brief overview of the Learner Support Report for EDCO 200. Now this is specifically for my EDCO 200 students who are completing this project for the spring 2020 semester. As you all know, we are in a very unique situation in that we had limited time in the field due to COVID-19. So you'll see that in this template that I will upload for you, we have both purple and black text. The purple is kind of like my notes of advice for you as we are having to complete this project with less time in the field. So the first thing I want to do is just kind of review this note on the top. So we've had limited time in the field, which means that you may need to think hypothetically to complete some of these answers. So as you get further down on this learner support report, which I will be walking you through in a moment, for example, there's a section on social and emotional development. Some of you may have had the opportunity to do an actual activity related to social emotional development, while I realize several of you did not. So what I want to really emphasize is you shouldn't be leaving anything blank, but you should rather be speaking hypothetically. So for example, you've had time with your student in the field. You've all had that. So given your experience with the student, what would you predict to be their greatest social emotional challenges and strengths? And it's okay if you're kind of hypothetically completing some of these responses. I realize that we are all working from limited time in the field. But just to be clear, that doesn't mean that I can justify you leaving anything blank. I would rather you be very hypothetical and provide as much detail as possible. So this learner support report is your key assessment for EDCO 200, meaning that in order to pass the class, you have to earn a quality grade on this assignment. So make sure that you go back in your syllabus and review the requirements here. There are various sections, and none of this should look too unfamiliar. The reason I keep saying throughout the semester to really intently complete those field journals is because now you will reap the benefits. So let's kind of walk through each section together. So my first section here is context analysis and the share factors. So remember, those share factors are from the Jensen textbook, Teaching with Poverty in Mind. So you'll definitely want to go back and review that material. So this first section is related to the share factors at various levels. So we have our share factors of support the whole child, hard data, accountability, relationship, and enrichment mindset. You have seen these share factors at various levels. So your task here is to identify the characteristics of each population as it relates to your school in general and your assigned learner after reviewing your observation notes. Meaning you already have a lot of this done, and yes, it is 100% acceptable for you to use what you have already written for your field journals in this assignment. So for this first column here, you're discussing how you have seen the school support the whole child, what kind of hard data is Sunset Park using, how is accountability being ensured. So this is at a school level. Then we have a classroom level. So this would be the specific classroom that you visited in the field and the specific classroom with your focus student. And then this last column right here is application to your future classroom. Now that section is always hypothetical. This is saying when I am teaching in the future, I will do these specific things to support the whole child. What I do want to really emphasize here is this short yet so important sentence that you must link content or theory, meaning within this chart, I need specific examples and I need to see that professional vocabulary and those theories that we've been discussing throughout the semester. This is a great time to pull out your colored sheet of paper where we have been writing out those key terms throughout the semester, and also a good time for you to look back at your notes and your assigned readings. So I am definitely looking for professional vocabulary and for evidence that you can connect this to the theorists that we have been studying. So this is part 1. I will upload the rubric separately so you can see, but this is definitely important. So we got 30 points there. So make sure that you're discussing at a school, classroom level, and then also in your future classroom. Part 2. Again, you've already done several of these questions, and now it's your opportunity to go back and add more evidence. Based on the information in this chart, do you believe the share model is being implemented well? In what ways? And explain. And then analysis question 2, what is one important thing the school or your specific classroom could do to improve the share model? So again, this is analysis. You can't just tell me, I think that my classroom needs to improve in relationship building. That sounds like a great start, but I want to know specifically what needs to be done and what evidence can you provide to ensure that we know why that's important. Okay, so that's section 1. Section 2 is all about development. Now, section 2, again, should look very familiar because we have been working with this chart. This one looks a little bit different, but we've been working with this chart of the 3 developmental areas for some time now. So I've had you look into cognitive and language development. Remember, that's when we talk about Piaget and Vygotsky. I've had you be collecting information on physical development. And then also, of course, social emotional development. Now, one thing to note, from this point until your final learner support report is due, we will be studying some more theorists that go into these 3 separate developmental areas. So do know that you will be getting a little bit more detailed information. And again, it might be, well, we didn't do an activity in the field with social emotional development, but at least you have a lot of experience with that student and you know what are their strengths, what are things that they struggle with. We did the activity with motivation, discussed what are the different needs that are motivating your student. All of that relates to social and emotional development. Okay, so this part 1 is yet another chart. This is worth 15 points, and you have 3 different information sources. Okay, again, I have highlighted link to content or theories. So I'm looking for you to use that professional vocabulary. I'm looking for you to discuss the specific theorists that we covered in class. Now, I wrote you a note here, misspelled the word conduct. Here we go. This first column is related to information from a teacher interview. Now, we did not conduct a formal teacher interview, and just to kind of calm you down, I actually never do a formal interview with my students in EDCO 200. Basically, in this column, you are reporting information that you were told, but you may or may not have actually directly observed. So for example, maybe the teacher told you your focus student seems to struggle with reading on grade level, or your focus student seems to be struggling a lot in math. They've just kind of shown a common struggle with long division. Anything that maybe you couldn't observe in your limited time in the field, but things that your teachers have told you. So any kind of information that they have shared, background information, that's what teacher interview really means here. So you're discussing the 3 developmental areas, both from the perspective of all of the data your teacher has given you and or the school as a whole, and then what you have actually observed. So that's your difference here. This last column is always, again, hypothetical for my EDCO 200 students. So this is related to activities that were observed or that you will do in your future classroom to impact student learning. So basically this section is meant for you to really reflect on how could I improve cognitive and language development in my future classroom. So one really tangible example, in our class, I gave you that sheet of highlighter, I can't remember what color it was, but really bright colored piece of paper. In every class, we had a couple of key terms, right? I had you write down those key terms. I wrote them down on the whiteboard, and we always referred back to them. That's a simple way for language development, right? So what you're thinking about here are very simple ideas to support these different developmental areas. Okay, so part 2, you're discussing the 3 assets for success. Another way to say that would be strengths. All right, if that word assets is kind of messing you up, just think of it as student strengths, and then challenges. We did a very specific field journal related to this, so you should have a lot of information here. So summarize your learner's most relevant assets or strengths and challenges in the chart below. And again, I have used professional vocabulary. So this is a great time to talk about perhaps indicators of a growth or fixed mindset, indicators of intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. So again, revisit your professional vocabulary and make sure that you're bringing in as many theorists as possible. Okay, part 3. This is when we are looking at how we can actually support students who have specific challenges. Okay, so within the Jensen textbook, that little red book, Jensen gives us so many practical strategies in terms of how to best meet the needs of your students. If you think back to your book project, you looked specifically at Jensen's work and to complete that project. So again, this is your opportunity to connect Jensen's text to a specific activity or specific classroom procedure that would meet the specific challenge that you listed up here. I did highlight this portion right here. You need to include a page number for that, okay? So I can't just read, Jensen says it's important to do X. I need you to give me evidence of where that came from. Your key to success here is a definite connection between the student challenge that you discuss and what kind of activity. Okay, so for example, maybe you listed a challenge of expressing emotions, right? Lots of you did your book projects on that specific challenge. One of you did the emotional flip book where you had the different faces. One of you did, I think it was Garrett who did the like fortune teller thing, that we shouldn't say the word fortune teller. So see how we have connected directly to this activity and your challenge to success. Another one that I saw from your book project was having a fixed mindset. And then I saw, I think it was Jaya who did the really awesome activity of turning I don't remember what you called it, like a minus to a plus, where she had listed difficult things as a minus, and then the students worked to create a plus out of that. Okay, so direct connection between the challenge and the activity. So again, you are noticing that everything in our class has built up to this learner support report. So it is definitely okay if you use similar strategies that you use in your book report, although I want you to know that you will need to provide a lot more evidence in terms of your writing. Okay, and lastly we have section 3, which is your reflective analysis. Okay, so part 1 is for you to reflect on your teaching activity. Now, I know some of you did not have the opportunity to complete your teaching activity. So again, you will need to be hypothetical here. Okay, given your knowledge about your focus student, how would you have adjusted your lesson planning to best meet their strengths and needs? So again, this cannot be blank. You need to be hypothetical if you did not have the opportunity to actually complete your teaching activity. Make sure within this section you're being very specific. How did your activity relate to the challenges and interests of your student? And once again, using your professional vocabulary. I cannot stress that enough. Okay, so the last two parts is a reflection on learners challenged by poverty. This is basically an overall reflection from the course. Review your journal notes and reflections. Just write one paragraph about your experiences this semester. So what did you learn about students and teachers affected by poverty? Potentially, what assumptions did you have and have they changed? The biggest advice I can give you for this section is to be honest. So the best reflections I've seen have been pretty blunt about, I had this misconception, but I'm so thankful I took this class because now I realize that poverty is much more than I originally believed. Okay, and then lastly, you are setting a goal for your own teaching the next time you are given the opportunity to work with a learner challenged by poverty. So I realize this seems like a lot. Again, I need to emphasize that you have your field journals for a reason. You have that colored sheet of paper with all of your professional vocabulary for a reason. There's a reason I gave you learning objectives at the start of each presentation. So you are well equipped to complete this report. You have some time to work on this. We actually have a week coming up where we are dedicating some time to work on this, but I wanted to make sure I gave you an overview before we went much further in the class. I will also be posting a short video that walks you through the rubric that is associated, and of course you're free to call me or email me with any questions. And I hope that you guys are all doing well and staying safe. Thanks.